There's a new generation of AI models out there, and they're making a pretty bold claim that they can reason, that they can actually think through problems, just like we do. But is it the real deal, or is it all just an incredibly convincing illusion? Well, we're going to dive deep and find out.
This is the big question, isn't it? It's not just about whether they can get the right answer. It's about whether they truly understand the steps to get there. Do they actually have a genuine ability to reason?
So, lately, we've seen these new models pop up. You've probably heard of them. Models like OpenAI's 01, DeepSeek-R1, and Claude 3.7 Thinking. And what's different about them is that they don't just spit out an answer. No, they generate a whole thought process first. So, a team of researchers at Apple decided to basically play detective and design this brilliant investigation to see if the so-called thinking actually holds up under pressure.
Okay, so the main character in our story is something called a large reasoning model, or LRM for short. Now, unlike a standard LLM that just gives you a direct answer, an LRM has to show its work. It produces this long, detailed chain of thought where it kind of explores different ideas, reflects on them, and then gives you a final answer. The whole idea is to mimic how a human might reason through a tough problem. So how in the world do you test something like this? Well, the researchers knew that using standard math problems was a bad idea. It's like trying to investigate a contaminated crime scene. The AI might have already seen the answers somewhere in its massive training data. So to get around that, they created the perfect solution, a kind of sterile interrogation room. They used a set of classic puzzles where they could control every single variable with surgical precision, making absolutely sure the AI had never seen that exact problem before.
They picked 4 specific puzzles, and each one was chosen to really stress test different parts of the AI's ability to reason and plan. And believe me, these are not your average trivia questions. They require real step-by-step logic.
And here they are, the 4 horsemen of this AI apocalypse: the Tower of Hanoi, checker jumping, the classic river crossing puzzle, and blocks world. And the brilliant part is, by just adding more disks, or more checkers, or more blocks, the researchers could dial up the difficulty and see exactly where the AI's so-called reasoning started to crack. And this brings us to the first huge clue that they uncovered in their investigation. What they found was that the AI's performance isn't just a simple, steady downward slope as things get harder. Nope. Instead, it falls into 3 very distinct zones, or what they called regimes, based on how tough the puzzle is. Now, in this first regime, for the easy stuff, something totally unexpected happened. The standard, non-thinking models were actually better, more accurate, and more efficient. It's like the thinking models, the LRMs, got bogged down. They were almost overthinking the simple tasks. Kind of weird, right? But then, that advantage completely flips in the second regime. This is where the LRMs finally get their moment to shine. Right in this medium complexity sweet spot, generating that chain of thought really pays off, giving them a huge performance boost and much higher accuracy than the standard models.
But then we hit regime 3, high complexity, and this is where everything just falls apart. It doesn't matter if it's a thinking model or a standard one. When the puzzles get hard enough, the performance for both of them just completely collapses. And this collapse, it wasn't a gentle slope. As they kept dialing up the difficulty, they found a very sharp, very sudden cliff, a point of total and absolute failure.
0%. That's right. Once a puzzle got past a certain level of difficulty, every single model failed to solve it correctly. Not one got it right. A complete and total breakdown in reasoning. They even have a name for this phenomenon, the complexity collapse. The accuracy is okay for a while, but then it doesn't just dip, it nosedives straight to 0. It's almost as if the model's ability to reason just evaporates into thin air. So why? What is actually happening inside these models when they hit that wall? I mean, you'd think they would try harder, right? Use more of their processing power to think it through. But what the researchers found was the exact opposite. And honestly, it's just bizarre.
They just stop trying. It's wild. As the problems get harder, the amount of thinking the model does goes up, which makes sense. But right at the breaking point, when the problem is at its absolute hardest, the model does this completely counterintuitive thing and reduces its effort. It basically gives up, even when it has plenty of juice left in the tank.
This behavior is just so strange that the only way to really understand it is to pop the hood and look inside those reasoning traces, to actually analyze the AI's thoughts and see how the quality of its logic changes. And this table right here sums it up perfectly. On the easy tasks, the AI often finds the right answer pretty early on,
but then it just ignores it and keeps wandering down all these wrong paths. On the medium tasks, it gets there, eventually, but only after making a whole bunch of mistakes. And on the really hard tasks, well, it never finds the right answer at all.
The researchers themselves actually called this an overthinking phenomenon. I mean, even when the correct answer is staring them right in the face, the models just waste a ton of energy exploring dead ends. It really suggests that whatever self-correction mechanism they have is incredibly inefficient.
Okay, so after putting these so-called thinking models through the ringer, what's the final verdict? Is any of this true reasoning? Let's look at all the evidence we've gathered.
And the evidence is, well, it's pretty damning. Think about the most shocking part. Even when the researchers literally gave the AI the exact step-by-step algorithm to solve the Tower of Hanoi, its performance didn't get any better. It still collapsed at the exact same point. So when you add that to the fact that they overthink easy problems and just give up on hard ones, a very clear picture starts to form.
Which leaves us with this one last question. If a model can't even follow a simple recipe that's handed to it on a silver platter, if it gives up when the going gets tough and overthinks when things are easy, is it really reasoning? Or are we just witnessing the absolute upper limits of a very, very sophisticated form of pattern matching?